750 is not going to bother me personally. Before they can implement everything, I'm going to be dead. So I'm safe. But Trevor's parents aren't safe. Trevor's toast. Unless, I mean, Trevor will not live in the America that I grew up in if we don't stop this now. I mean, I was very fortunate. I grew up in America in the Northeast in the 1950s. It couldn't have been a better time. But that life that I grew up with is going fast. And 750 is one of the type of things that takes you, what I believe is absolutely in the wrong direction. Before going a little bit more into the heart of the speech, I want to talk about a couple things. One is, almost everything I say is in these documents here. So it's well documented. When I talk about things between myself and Michael Busher being the Executive Director of the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, the letters are in here. So nothing's made up. There are copies of it available for anybody who wants it. The second thing is, my wife handed out a bunch of these Liberty cards. These came up because I read this book called What Price Liberty by a guy named Michael Price. He was a British guy. And in it, he said that one of the problems today is that elected officials don't talk enough about liberty. They don't make it part of the conversation. You cannot go into a school, a planning conference, a university, without hearing about environmental justice, social justice, redistributive justice, the progressive agenda. But elected officials don't talk about liberty and some of the conditions necessary for liberty to flourish. So I believe it's important. There are 16 different quotes there. I think they're just great to read, great to talk about, great to pop quiz your son on if you want to.
I'm sorry.
What Price Liberty? So, right off the bat, I want to give you my bias. I'm an American conservative. I believe that the great mission of American conservatism is to secure the conditions necessary for liberty to flourish. Generally, these would include a strong national defense, free markets, traditional morality, and what I believe is most important for local officials, such as myself, limited government. That is the way and the path to build a better government. A lot of meetings that I go to, we begin with the pledge. The last 6 words of the pledge to the flag of the United States of America are, with liberty and justice for all. And I believe that the battle for the heart and soul of America today is found in those 6 words. It's the battle between conservatives who focus on liberty, the liberty of our founders, of our founding fathers, and progressives who focus on justice. But not the justice of the founders, which I take to be roughly just desserts, but rather the redistributive justice found in John Rawls' works, which is being pushed by the Obama administration. A fair and preliminary question is, well, does this focus really make a difference? And I believe that it does. I believe that the difference between the liberty of the founders and the progressive redistributive justice not only matters, but is crucial for the future of this country. It is crucial because where you start with either the founders' liberty or the progressives' justice is going to determine where you end up. Begin with liberty, and you end up with a government which serves the people. Start with the progressive justice, and you end up with a society where the society exists to serve the government. Begin with liberty, and it's the individual who matters, the individual who has rights, and you design your society to help the individual flourish. Start with the progressive justice, and you end up with a society where the collective will governs and the individual is no longer important. Begin with liberty, and the Constitution matters. Start with the progressive justice, and the Constitution is simply one more document meant to serve the progressive agenda. This focus is crucial. Take something like equality. For conservatives, starting with liberty, equality generally means equality of opportunity. For progressives, starting with redistributive justice, equality means equality of results. And this means the government determining the outcomes. So how does the Obama administration impose its progressive ideology of redistributive justice on counties like Indian River and Palm Beach counties? The Obama administration aims to impose this ideology, its ideology, on us through grants and projects like 750. Rose talked a little bit about the beginnings of 750. I'd like to go into them a little bit more, so we all have a little background and a starting platform. It gets a little confusing because initially 2 Florida planning groups, the South Florida Regional Planning Group that has Monroe, Broward, and Miami-Dade counties in it, joined with the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, which consists of Palm Beach County, Martin County, St. Lucie County, and Indian River County. They joined to form a super region. They did this because in 2010, Congress passed $150 million for regional planning. They basically told the U.S. Department of Urban Housing and Development, the EPA, and the U.S. Department of Transportation to give this money to super regions. The 2 Florida planning groups got together, filed a grant application, and got $4.25 million for planning purposes. Now, this might sound benign. I mean, planning is generally good, but for me, you know, what I started from is the foundation document of 750, which is the Regional Vision and Blueprint for Economic Prosperity. And of course, the title sounds great. Who's not for economic prosperity? Is anybody here who wants to be poor? That wants to see us, you know, just go down the tubes? No. So you have a great name like that with economic prosperity. But if you actually read that document and see and try to get us understanding of the principles embedded in that document, you realize that it's just clearly incompatible with conservative principles. So that's why I was initially against it. So why did Indian River County leave 750? And again, the foundation document of the 750 talks about deeply held values. You must use that phrase about 10 times. And a reading of the Regional Vision and Blueprint for Economic Prosperity shows that its deeply held values are inconsistent with the deeply held values of the vast majority of people in Indian River County. It was that simple. You take something like local decision making. People in Indian River County believe that local decision making has led to the development of a nice county. Most of us actually moved there from somewhere else. And the people in that community believe that they actually built it and made it the county that it is today. And for the most part did that without help from the federal government. The 750 group is basically going to lead to decision-making and control from Washington. Now the 750 planners will deny that, but that will be the outcome. If you look what the EPA and HUD have done in other communities, it's fairly clear that that's the path that's going to take us down. In Indian River County, we believe in property rights. Rose brought that point up in her presentation. 750 is taking us on a path where our property rights are going to wither away. In 750, we believe in representative democracy. When I was talking to Mr. Schlesinger earlier today, I said, well, you know, one of the things about me is that anybody in the county who doesn't like something that I did, and it happens regularly, they can call me on the phone and tell me, which they do. How many people in this room know of, or at least can give me the name of, some of your county commissioners? Let's see a show of hands. So how many of you would know how to get a hold of Michael Busha? Michael Busha? One in the back. Michael Busha is the executive director of the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. The point is, with the local elected officials, there's accountability. You elect him, or some of your friends elected him, but you know where to find him. Most people don't know where to find Michael Busha. He wasn't elected. He was appointed by somebody a lot of years ago. So that aspect of representative democracy, which I like and most people in America like, it, again, gets withered away. In Indian River County, we believe in financial responsibility. Our county has actually cut our budget since the 2007-2008 fiscal year by almost 40%. Our property ad valorem taxes, we as a board made a decision when the times were getting bad and realized that any additional financial burden was bad on the citizens of Indian River County, we realized that the best thing we can do was to keep the millage rate flat. So when the housing values went down, our tax take diminished. So in 2007, 2008, we took in about $104 million in ad valorem taxes. This year, it's $69 million. So that's $35 million, which we left in the pockets of the citizens in our county so they could pay their bills, they could pay their mortgages, they could do with the money that they actually earned. And I believe that that is the best decision that I've been a part of as a county commissioner. You don't find that in Washington. Right now,
You don't even find it in Palm Beach.
right now, every taxpayer in this room has an unfunded tax liability of over $1 million. So, Trevor, thank you. You're going to pay that down for me.
We're New Yorkers, so now.
Oh, that's every American. That's every American.
Oh, okay.
Every American taxpayer
Okay.
has a liability of over $1 million for the unfunded liabilities. And thanks to Obamacare, those are going to be a lot greater, evidently, from what I'm starting to read.
It's like 89 trillion or something, right?
Well, it's about, the number I use is roughly about 120 trillion.
120.
Just I think for Medicaid, it gets up to 69 to 79 billion. And then you've got pensions and a lot of other things. So, liberty and justice are both needed if we want to build a great nation, and that's clear. But the people involved in 750 focus on economic justice, social justice, and redistributive justice without a nod towards liberty. And I remember the first time the 750 people came up to Indian River County, they had something called a work group roadshow. And they broke us up into small groups. And there were 4 citizens, including myself, at one table. But at each table, they matched the citizens with a member of the staff and a planner, so that the citizens can get no control. So there are 4 planners at my table. And because I was a county commissioner, I got Michael Busha, the executive director, and this guy Dover, who was the head consultant. And we're having a nice back and forth. And I had 3 other conservative citizens on my table, so this went really well from my point of view. But every time I brought up something about liberty, they just didn't get it. They don't understand the idea of liberty at all. So they can't see anything that's their process, their plan threatens. And that is a very scary thing. So there are a lot of other reasons for leaving 750, but I'd like to focus on just 3 more tonight: the process, the planners, and corruption. So Indian River County got out of 750 on December 18th, and the galvanizing force for that was the work group roadshow, which I discussed. That was on October 25th of last year. And it showed our citizens how manipulative that process was. It began with an agenda which had no substance. If you took the agenda and read it, you couldn't see that anything of importance or interest was going to happen at that meeting today, so why attend? The work group's roadshow itself was about 3 hours, and it was, quite frankly, insulting. They'd hold up 2 pictures. This is the pretty picture, and this is the ugly picture. You go, okay, which one do you like? Pretty picture, good, pass that one. And then they had like, give me your one word. It was sad, actually, but they thought that this was real work, and thought that this was going to do something. But basically, there's something called a Delphi process, which planners and people learn, that evidently is designed to deliver you to where they want to put you. They've determined this prior to the start, and most of the citizens that were there realized that they'd just been Delphied. And that energized them, and on December 18th of last year, there were 180 anti-750 people at the county commission meeting, and about 12 of them got up to speak to explain why we needed to get out. And with a 4-to-1 vote, we got out of 750. The second thing I want to talk about is the planners. And to me, what I mentioned just a few minutes ago, one of the most troublesome things about this is that the planners do not even see the possibility that there is a chance that the coercive power of the state may be used in Indian River County or Palm Beach County or any one of these 7 counties. I gave them a number of examples where the coercive power of the state had been used against us, and they said, well, it cannot happen here. But it already has happened here. We have seatbelt laws, fertilizer laws, water ordinances, increasingly expensive land development ordinances, and building codes. And it doesn't stop there. You go inside your house. Who's changing out their light bulbs? Whose idea was that? Was it yours? No, it's the federal government's. The toilet, if you have a new toilet, barely works anymore.
General Electric is making a fortune.
Yeah, it does. I mean, they're selling all these great new light bulbs. But that was the coercive arm of the state coming into your home and telling you how to live. In Indian River County, I voted against it in a 4-to-1 vote, but it was to pass a new building code, which the state tells us we have to pass. So it's one of those odd things in government. Well, the state says you have to pass this, so it doesn't matter what you do, so vote for it. But I voted against it, and one of the reasons was because they had things which were just wrong. They had this, what's called a manual J calculation. A manual J calculation will tell you the size air conditioner you need in your house. Well, I'm a stable individual. I've got a wonderful wife and we've lived in the same house for 25 years. I'm on my third air conditioner. Hey, each one has worked fine for me, but the next time I get one, I'll have to pay an extra $250 to see if that's the right size. 25 years of use, but I have to see if it's the right size. But a lot worse than that, they said that you're also going to have to get your ductwork checked. Well, you have to get new ductwork. Well, you're already going to get probably one of the main pieces of your AC changed, and the cost of that is almost doubled in the last 5 years, especially with getting rid of Freon. You need another $1,000 to check your ductwork. And why is that the government's decision? I mean, I may have $8 to pay a bigger electric bill, but may not have $1,000 to pay for that ductwork check. But they're telling me that essentially, if things aren't going well for me, that I'm going to go without AC that summer. And that's what's going to happen to a large number of people. It probably already has happened. And, again, the government shouldn't be in that business, but it is. So when Michael Busha tells me that at the end of the day, it's going to be the local government's decision, he's wrong. It doesn't work that way anymore. The third thing I want to talk about is corruption. And corruption, unfortunately, has been a sort of bigger part of my job over the last couple of years. Just, you get in government and you realize this is happening. At a March 16, 2012 Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council meeting, Ramon Trias, a member of the council board, said that the project, referring to the 750 grant, has spent $700,000 with no results so far. A comment made at a budget meeting earlier that morning was, they have squandered most of $1 million. And when they say they mean the South Florida Regional Planning Group. Initially, the grant was given to the South Florida Regional Planning Council. They were in control of it and in control of the spending. Suddenly, the Treasure Coast Regional Council members realized that they're just using the money to maintain the size of their bureaucracy and not doing the grant work. The members of the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council basically panicked and said, we've got to change things very quickly. So I wrote Mr. Bush a letter after this and said that my understanding was that they had just used this money to control their bureaucracy. And for me, that would be to maintain the bureaucracy. And for me, that is basically corruption. And my definition of public corruption is simply the private use of public goods. When somebody in government takes your tax dollars and uses it for a purpose other than that government purpose it was supposed to use, that is for a private purpose, that's corruption. So when a group takes grant money and uses it to maintain the size of a bureaucracy instead of doing the grant work, that's corruption. So I wrote this to Mr. Busha, saying what my understanding was and asked him if his understanding was consistent with this, and I quote from his letter, I concur. Your letter accurately captures the mood and concerns of the Executive Committee and the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council during the 6 months prior to March 30th, 2012. I concur. I concur, but the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council's response was not to fight this very blatant corruption. It was simply to take over the management of the grant. It demanded that it get control of the grant, that it hire a project director, and it will see that the rest of the work was done. I take this to be very simply another example of bureaucracy's broken moral compass. Now, the size of the federal debt has reached huge proportions. This extra $1 million is clearly just a drop in the bucket, but I believe it is still wrong. And let's get some understanding of the result of all this. Rose began painting a picture, but the end result will not be the utopia of the progressive planners. The end result will be that we will be making of our children and grandchildren indentured servants of the state. Trevor is not going to be able to pay off that $1 million of debt that we're putting on him and his brothers and his friends in school. And that ought to be a real concern for everybody in this room. And I believe that if we stayed in 750, it would be our immoral act for continuing with something that was certainly wrong. Indian River County has withdrawn from 750, and I believe that every other one of the 7 counties ought to do the same. And I'd like to make one final thing very clear. At its most important level, 750 in regional planning is not about planning, and it is not about economic prosperity, it is about ideology. There's an editorial in a recent Wall Street Journal. It noted an Oregon project dealing with Medicaid. The group that used 35% more 35% more money, 35% more assets, got 35% more in health services, showed no clinical differences from the identical uninsured group. Yet, the progressives who had this thing going wanted this ineffective, expensive program to continue. As noted in the Wall Street Journal editorial, but what the progressive response to the Oregon experiment shows is that Obamacare has never been about quality of care. It is an ideological project to redistribute income in the name of social justice. This, to me, is the theme of the Obama administration. It's a common thread which runs through Obamacare, through the Benghazi scandal, through the IRS conservative group targeting. The Obama administration's prime concern has nothing to do with good government, which ought to be the concern of every elected official. The Obama administration's concern is about promoting its benighted, progressive ideology on all Americans. So 750 is the same. It is not about planning, and it is not about economic prosperity. It is an ideological project to redistribute income, your income, in the name of social justice. Thank you.